everybody ready to go? Yes, yes. Okay, first of all, and I think these might fall off, but we'll try it. I think this one might be better, because that's... I apologize for the delay that it's taken us to get back to you. Judge Hadfield made her decision a week ago this afternoon, but we really didn't have anything to say, and I needed to do a lot of work so that I could come before you and give you information, talk about what we have to say. We try to be as responsive as possible, but we knew that you would have a lot of questions and wanted to be able to give you the answer. You know, much has been said, especially from one media outlet, why we just didn't conflict the case out to begin with. It's easy, just conflict it out once the motion was filed. And I want to let you all know that it wasn't quite that easy, and that when the motion to conflict our office out in the Boyd case, I'm referring to the Boyd case obviously, I started looking for special prosecutors in anticipation of what may or may not happen. It's our job to always be ready and to solve the problem before it gets too big. And I did start looking for special prosecutors, and in fact, we didn't have any takers at that point in time. And it wasn't because people didn't care or people weren't aware of the responsibility to the public or people didn't want to help. It's just that we're all dealing with such limited resources that we didn't have anyone that could really pitch in and help. Also, the second concern was money. And I'm certainly not saying that you can put any price on justice, because I agree, there is no price on justice. But in running an office, the largest law firm in the state of New Mexico, with a substantial budget, a substantial responsibility, it's my duty to spend every penny that we have as wisely as we can so that we can handle the 20-some-odd thousand cases that come through our office. You all are aware of the new CMO, or case management order, that went into effect on February 2nd. That's tremendously strained our resources, and we've been in the media talking about it. We've talked to all of you about that. And we had asked the legislature for over $1.2 million to fund 16 positions to help us deal with that CMO. We really needed at least double that. We knew we weren't going to get it, so we asked for half of what we needed. In fact, we got $1,000 or $150,000, substantially less. So that was weighing on us. Clearly, how are we going to do everything that we're supposed to do as responsibly as the public needs us to do it, and then deal with special prosecutors and that cost? I don't know if you remember, but years ago the Attorney General was in a position where they had to hire a special prosecutor, and I don't know the amount, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I just knew that our budget could not do that, and so we were looking for a responsible solution. But once again, I do appreciate that there's no dollar amount on justice, and it was up to us to find a solution. That's why I get paid the big bucks, right? You know, it's important to note too, and we've had a lot of questions about the court's order. We've read through the order. It's important to note that she didn't say that we had a conflict of interest, but she said we had an appearance of a conflict of interest. And to you all, that may not seem like a big deal. To the public, obviously, it's not a big deal. But legally speaking, that's a huge deal, that there's an appearance of a conflict, and thus she ordered that I find a special prosecutor on this case. What is at issue is perhaps, and I want to address it, confront it head on, because that's how I do things, that there may be some retaliation. And once again, she talks about media sources and some hint of retaliation because I may have criticized some aspect of the criminal justice system. And I want to assure you, this isn't going to be real exciting, it's not going to be sensational, but it's the truth, that I would never react or retaliate against anyone in my position as district attorney. I like to think I would never do it, just as a human being, as a mother, as a sister, as a daughter. I grew up, and you all have heard this story many times, when my dad was in the district attorney's office. And there were times that, and I talked to my dad about this last night, that people would come to our house and ask for search warrants or have to have my dad sign off when he was an assistant DA. And they'd always go to the living room. Those were the days where we had living rooms where you weren't allowed to go into them. But Dad would go sit at the table, and I would be a little kid, usually in my pajamas, as I recall. And I'd just look at police officers and think, wow. I mean, like, they were so important. They were more important than my father was as an assistant district attorney. And that was the beginnings of my feeling good and having confidence and believing in the credibility of law enforcement. As a defense attorney for 20 years, I worked with law enforcement. You know, and some people will say, well, they're your enemies. Well, no, they weren't. They were doing their job, and I would talk to them, and I don't think you could find a single law enforcement officer out on the streets that could say I was short, rude, impolite, discourteous, or anything to them during my 20 years as a defense attorney. I would suggest the same thing today, and if you look at my 14 years as district attorney. I really value our ability to be team players with every agency that we have to work with. There are times that we disagree, there are times that we criticize, there are times that we struggle to try to bring the bar up higher. But there has never been, and I say that without an ounce of doubt in my mind, any retaliation. There is not room for retaliation in this job and with our responsibilities. I have worked cooperatively, with the police department, the Albuquerque Police Department, for the last 14 years. And again, this isn't sensational, but we're still working with them every day. And we have been working with them diligently on the case management order and trying to get all the discovery that we need. We couldn't do this job without them. We couldn't prosecute the cases that we prosecute. So I want the record to be clear that we would never prosecute anyone, no matter who they are, including police officers, without just and legal cause. Our goal in filing the charges was simply to set the foundation for a preliminary hearing, and the judge would be making the decision. Now, we could have proceeded to the grand jury and have controlled the entire process, but we didn't want to do that. We wanted a level playing field, and so what we did is we decided we're going to file these charges, we're going to go to prelim, so all of you all can be included in the process, the public can be included, and we're not even going to make the decision. We're going to let a court make the decision. Before we did that, we contacted the defense attorneys, and we said, we'll give you whatever you need. What do you want? This is our timing, this is what we plan to do, and this is when we plan to do it. In a very cooperative spirit. No retaliation whatsoever. And that's the way we do business. That's the way we've done business for 14 years. That's the way I've done business my entire career. And that's the way we will continue to do business. Regardless of what others do, we are always going to take the high road. That doesn't mean that we're not going to critique and we're not going to work, again, as I said, to raise the bar and have a better system. We are not going to appeal Judge Hadfield's order. Why? We think our community and the officers need a resolution in this case. And I'm going to deviate a little bit because I have you all here. Our community needs answers to many questions. In case you haven't noticed, and I don't watch the news and I don't read the paper, but I even know this. We're in crisis. We are in a crisis that I'm not sure we can recover from. We are in a crisis that I'm not sure we'll recover from. If we do, in my lifetime, this is the time, and I say this from my heart, and I say it because I believe it, and I say it because I believed it for a while. This is a time for each of us And I mean every one of you as an individual, every one of you as part of the media. Everyone. All elected officials, of which I am one. All government agencies. And then you all, as the media, to step up and be the best that we can be. If we care about our community and if we care about each other. We need to work together for solutions. We need to maintain our focus on a solution and not a controversy. I know it's not sensational, it's not sexy, but I really think our community, whether or not we survive, whether or not we make it, whether or not we leave our children a world that we would want to live in depends upon it. And to do what is right, to always do what is right, risking what the personal consequences may be. And I've been in kind of a bind in the last 4 months. Do I do what is right per my oath of office? Or do I do what is right for me as a human being with constitutional rights? And that's a problem. But there comes a time when we really don't matter, but the bigger picture does matter. And we have to do what is right. I can find an example of someone who did that in the last couple of weeks, maybe in the last month. Everybody knows about a situation that happened with the Albuquerque Police Department. And it's been in the news this week. And someone came forward and said, something wrong happened. I believe it was a cadet that came forward and said, I witnessed something, and it was wrong. And now we're working towards a resolution in that situation. That's what we need people to do. Now, the personal sacrifice that person made, I don't know. I understood that there's a chance that person may have already resigned as a cadet. That's a huge consequence. But the good that came from that courageous act is something that we need to be aware of and that we need to focus on. We should all welcome, and I mean this, the light of day and individuals coming forward with the truth so that we can be successful. And it shouldn't be viewed simply as retaliation. If somebody comes forward and says something, if somebody comes forward in my office and says, you know what, this case was handled wrong, I should look at that and accept that and learn from it and view it as constructive criticism and not as retaliation, and I reject it and I'm not going to talk about it. You all know what I'm talking about. To do so, to criticize constructively, doesn't mean that we don't care or we're retaliating. It means that we care. It could mean that we love. And we want to be part of the solution. When one door closes, another one opens. It's amazing how that works. And I'm old enough, when I was younger I didn't believe that. I've lived long enough to believe that. And when the court disqualified us last Thursday, I got to work, and not very hopeful that another door would be open, but it was. And I am pleased to inform you that Randi McGinn has agreed to be the special prosecutor in the Boyd case. All the necessary paperwork, I take it, Kayla, has been filed, and I would like to read you a press conference from her office. And I think she did this to try to avoid you guys, just because she's going to be working hard, and she's got a lot going on. This is a press conference from Randi McGinn's office. After learning that the Attorney General's, and I need to say first that we first offered this case to the Attorney General's office. I wrote a letter to Hector Balderas, and I said I believe that he should have the first option with the case if he felt it was appropriate, and he declined and said that he had a conflict of interest. So then we sought other counsel. So I'm reading Randi McGinn's press release. After learning that the Attorney General's office and several district attorneys' offices around the state have declined to review and take up the prosecution of the 2 men who shot James Boyd on March 16, 2014, our law office has decided to step up to investigate the case. It is important that the first prosecution of a police shooting caught on videotape be handled in a manner that promotes confidence in our criminal justice system. No one should be above the law, and every Albuquerque citizen, whether a homeless man in the mountains or a police officer patrolling its streets, should be allowed the due process protections afforded by that same law. Although we are often on the opposite side of the District Attorney, Carrie Brandenburg, and the dedicated prosecutors in her office, we are grateful to her for the opportunity to help the community learn how this shooting death occurred. Our firm will not bill by the hour for the hundreds of hours of work this case will require. Instead, we will charge the Bernalillo County District Attorney's Office for the same fee paid to the contract public defenders for handling an entire murder case, a total of $5,400, plus actual out-of-pocket costs. The flame of justice goes out if there is no one to tend to it. Ladies and gentlemen, I would suggest that we all have the responsibility to tend to that flame. And I ask that you all be part of the solution, individually and in your jobs and your responsibilities in the community. I want to thank you for your attention to this matter, and I look forward to your fair and accurate reporting in the future. So I'll stand for questions.
Dear Brandenburg, did Hector Balderas, did he respond to your request?
Yes, he immediately responded. I wrote him, and he knew that time was of the essence, and I explained.
Do you mind stepping in front of the mic?
Oh, I'm sorry. And I explained that, in fact, the court had set a status conference, and I believe that one of the defense attorneys had indicated if they don't have a special prosecutor up and running, I'm going to move for a dismissal of the charges. So he was aware of the time element, and he responded, I don't know how many hours, but within 24 hours, or close to within 24 hours after he received our letter.
Did the Attorney General elaborate on what his conflict of interest was to you?
No, he just said that he was in the same position. Actually, do we have copies of his letter? We have copies of his letters, which we will be able to share with you. But specifically, he said specific to these matters, our office shares some of the same conflicts that caused Judge Hadfield to disqualify your office. And that was his explanation. We sent our letter, I don't have a date on it, on April 13th. In the morning, I can't remember exactly when we got it out, we emailed it, and we received his letter on April 14th the next day. I think it was a 24-hour turnaround, pretty close to that.
I know you kind of covered this a little bit, but just kind of take us through the process of selecting why you decided to arrive at a private attorney.
Well, because in my letter, and you'll get a copy of my letter to the Attorney General as well, that I had inquired with the district attorneys throughout the state, and they have responsibilities to their constituents. A lot of them have very small offices. We are the largest law firm in the state. I think the next biggest office has 20 attorneys, which really is very small compared to what we have. And I think that they felt like their first responsibility was to their constituents and their statutory duties. Frankly, if I were to put myself in their shoes, I would have said the same thing. My job is to take care of the people in Bernalillo County, and I need to do that first. And if I can do anything else, I'll be happy to, but my primary responsibility is here in this office, and so I think most of them felt that way.
Harry, how many district attorneys' offices or district attorneys did you have to do?
We have 13 other district attorneys. There's 14 district attorneys in the state. The way I presented it was in a group meeting. We meet on a regular basis in a group meeting, and I didn't get any takers. I talked to several individually, and I did speak to Rick Tedrow, who is the head of the District Attorneys Association. I believe it was on Friday. And I said, Rick, it was my understanding when I brought the subject up that there was nobody willing to take the case. Did I read that clearly? And he said, yes, Carrie, I think that you read
Were
that
all
clearly.
of those?
There might have been one or two absent, because when we have meetings, not everyone can
Sure.
attend every meeting. I didn't do a roll call.
And when was that?
I don't know,
Wow.
but I can look at my calendar and tell you.
So how is it, tell me, did you reach out to Randi McGinn? Did she reach out? How did this come?
I reached out to Randi McGinn.
Yeah, phone call?
Well, I called her up, then we set a meeting, and we discussed it, and it wasn't probably until yesterday morning that she confirmed that in fact she would take it. I hope I'm giving you guys the right timelines. I mean,
Why Randy?
pardon?
Why Randy?
Because she agreed to take it, and because she's charging us $5,400, and that's quite, my responsibility is, I mean, there's no price on justice, but my responsibility is to handle taxpayers' dollars as frugally and effectively and efficiently as I can. I think I'm getting an incredible attorney with incredible talent for a minimal cost, and so I'm accomplishing a number of different goals at once.
Did you reach out to any other private attorneys, or did you have?
Yes, I did reach out to some other private attorneys. I did discuss it with other private attorneys, and I prefer not to
Sure.
to reveal. I don't have their permission to reveal all those discussions, and I was not. I didn't. They were of the same frame of mind. They just couldn't handle the case. They're all making livings, and they have to pay bills and things like that. They have commitments on cases that they've already taken.
On the other hand, did any attorneys come forward and say, I want to take on this high-profile case?
Actually, no. Not that I know of. No one has communicated that to me.
You mentioned the $5,400 cost, but you also said out-of-pocket costs, correct?
Well, that would be for, I'm assuming that's expert witness, things that we would have to pay anyway if we were prosecuting.
And do you have any idea of how much that made?
No, no. And I think something like that is pretty fluid, depending upon the issues. And Randi now has the case. I don't know what her issues will be. I don't know how she will see it. That's up to her.
Carrie, you had mentioned that you've had some dialogue back and forth with the Attorney General this week. Obviously, he's still reviewing a case in which you're the suspect. Do you have any sense for where that stands?
I absolutely did not have any dialogue that related to that. It would have been inappropriate for me. And whenever I did have any dialogue with the Attorney General or his office, I don't believe I had any direct dialogue with the Attorney General, but I always had someone in my presence, just to be careful, because as an attorney and an officer of the court, we have ethical responsibilities that we need to honor.
They didn't volunteer anything regarding your case?
Absolutely not, and
Okay.
had they volunteered anything, I probably would have disconnected the line. That would have been my responsibility to do so.
Carrie, you said that we're in a crisis, and I'm not sure we can recover from.
Well,
What are you
I'm
talking
sorry,
about? I mean,
I'm talking about our city.
Who's the we?
We are in a crisis, our community is what I'm talking about, as an
What is the-
elected official and leader in the
What
community.
is the crisis?
Well, I don't even read the papers, and I know that, Dennis, so.
No,
I do think
I
that there's
can't
a,
speculate.
let me tell you what the real, crisis is: a lack of faith in our community, a lack of faith in our government, a lack of faith in our elected officials, a lack of faith in our law enforcement, a lack of faith. And when I came into office, I said I had 3 goals. One, to support the people in the office. Number 2, to be effective in prosecution and impact public safety. And number 3, to positively impact the public's faith in the integrity of the criminal justice system. And I have to say, if you compare from the time I came in to now, it's just a very sad situation. I go to grocery stores. I mean, I'm out in public shopping and doing things and talking to people. And I have noted a level of desperation of hopelessness. They've used those words. And so I have people all the time talk to me about that. And I think we are in a crisis. And I'm an optimist. My husband used to make fun of me because I was so optimistic. I'm an optimist. I don't know that we can recover. Do you have my commitment that I'm going to do everything I can to be part of the solution? Yes. And that includes getting 2 hours sleep a night if that's what it takes. Yes. You have my commitment. I can't do more than what I can do. So I'm asking for everyone. We all have a
Is the
role.
crisis in the mistrust of law enforcement specifically due to the Albuquerque Police Department and police officer shootings?
I think that's part of it. I don't think that's all of it. I think that's part of it.
What else are they bringing up, these people in the grocery store?
Well, to me, because of my job, most of them are talking about the police department. But that's because of my job. My friends are talking about moving out of the state. Economy is a huge issue. I mean, everybody knows that. The frustration because nobody seems to be getting anything done. I mean, also frustration with Washington, D.C. The feeling of impotence. Everybody feels powerless in making things better, and I'm saying we can't. And I give pep talks to everyone, and then go home at night and I give myself a pep talk, and I give myself another one in the morning saying, you know what, if you give up, you can't do anything. I remember a quote, and I'm going to say it wrong, that I sent someone in a text message or an email saying, being a hero is enduring for one moment more. And I messed that up, I'm sure. I can get you, it's on my bulletin board in my closet where I see it every morning to try to inspire me. But really, isn't that true? We can all be heroes. We all can be heroes.
Carrie,
Step up to the plate.
there are a lot of people who would say that you've been part of what led to this crisis in the criminal justice system and in law enforcement more broadly, specifically related to police shootings for a long time. How would you respond to that?
And I would respond to that as I understand that perception. I understand that perception. And we do everything we can. We have a system in place that second guesses itself so many times along the way to try to make the right decision. I know I make a lot of decisions that people don't agree with. I hope they understand that we're trying to do the right thing. And just because I don't agree with something the police, and that's what I think we need to work on, is if I don't agree with Chief Eden does, it doesn't mean he's wrong, and it doesn't mean that I can punish him or disagree with him or not take the high road. It means, okay, I don't agree with that. Let me think about that. Let me process that. How can we work with that? We need to have that attitude. And I suggest that we have had that attitude all along, and we're going to continue to practice on being better with that attitude. But I agree, and you know, Jeff, the little things that I do is I talk to people in the grocery stores that come up to me if I'm eating dinner out. I return every phone call. I return every email that I get I make appointments with people to try to explain why we do what we do, what the law is. I think we're the only district attorney's office in the nation that has the website that we have with all the officer-involved shooting reports with all of the information attached. So you know what? You don't even have to agree with me. I'm going to give you everything you need to disagree with me. That kind of thing, I think, helps. And there's always going to be a distrust in government to some degree. And that doesn't mean the government deserves the distrust. It's like teenagers not trusting their parents. I mean, there's only so much you can do. But you can always try to take the high road. You can always constantly evaluate, bring more people into the process, and then do what I'm doing. And open myself up to answer the questions. I talked to you about something yesterday, I don't remember what it was, and I think it was after our press release went out, and I told you, ask me the hard questions. Did I not say that?
You did.
Okay.
DA Brandenburg, earlier you brought up the fact that 2 officers have been accused of using excessive force and that a cadet may have come forward to turn those 2 police officers in. And then you said, I believe one of them has resigned. Were you referring to the cadet?
Yes, I was referred to the cadet.
The cadet has resigned?
No, that's the information I have. I have no formal information, and we have not had any contact with the police department. That is information I received from someone else that is credible information, but I don't know. I would not take that to the bank. That's the information that I have from a credible source.
And you're looking into that case?
No, we are not involved in that case.
Okay.
Does that present any problems for you? 2 police officers accused of excessive force, surely they may have other cases in your office. Do you know their names?
No, I don't know their names.
Does that present any problems for your
That
office?
does present problems that we don't know their names, because they could be involved in other cases in our office, and we'll need to evaluate those other cases to determine whether or not we can go forward or we can dismiss them, so we will be, that was one of my tasks this afternoon, is try to determine their names so that we can pull cases that they may be involved with in our offices and evaluate them.
What has, if I may interrupt, I'm sorry, what has your source told you that the allegations are obviously?
I don't really
excessive?
want to get into that, other than, I have you might have more information than I have at this point, because I work and I don't watch the news, and I rely on Kayla to tell me, or my friends, which unfortunately they tell me more than I want to know, what's in the news or what's going on. So I don't know, and we really have not been involved in that whatsoever.
Have you asked the chief for their names?
No, I have not.
Will you?
I will if I can't get them any other way. I believe somebody said that they've been out in the media. I don't know if that's true or not.
No, that's not true.
Okay. But we do need those names so that we can evaluate. You can understand if they're sole witnesses on other cases, obviously those other cases need to be evaluated, re-evaluated.
Dear, you said just a little while ago, we're in a crisis and I'm not sure we can recover from in my lifetime. What, in your estimation, would it take?
I'm pretty old.
What, in your estimation, would it take to restore the community, the public's faith? Would it be a conviction of these 2 officers? What would it take?
No. I don't think it's anything that concrete. You know what I think it would take? In my opinion, and my feeble, I'm not an expert on this, guys. I'm struggling with this the same way everybody else is struggling with it. People to have the courage to come forward and say, this happened and it's wrong. This happened and it's wrong. This isn't right. And try not to be afraid. And I understand the fear. We deal with that in our prosecution of cases. And I'd say that in my office. If something bad were happening in my office and I didn't know about it, anyone that would come forward and say this case was purposely put in a pile of closed cases so that it wasn't prosecuted, I would hope that person would come forward and say that's not right, and that we deal with that in the light of day, and the media knows about it, and the community knows about it, and they know how we're going to prevent that from happening in the future. Right now, my sense is that there are so many people afraid, and the media knows this, because you all have your sources, and you all have the same information I have about a lot of things, but nobody's willing to come forward because they're afraid. I think that's the key. If we all try to be as courageous as we can and think about the whole and not the personal consequences, I think that will go a long way.
Why do you feel compelled to talk about this crisis? Are you frustrated with the chief or the mayor?
You know what? I'm talking about this crisis because I live here. I was born here. I care. I'm an elected official. I'm a leader in the community. And if I don't talk about it, I'm not leading.
Are you frustrated with the chief or the mayor?
Well, I'm frustrated with myself that I have to sleep 2 hours a night. I mean, why do I have to waste that 2 hours when I could be working and doing something else? Am I frustrated? I'm frustrated.
That's not an
But once
answer to the question.
again,
The question was, are you
I
frustrated with the
don't-
chief and the mayor?
I don't want to, anything I say is going to be considered retaliatory, and I don't want to feed into that. I'm not retaliating.
We all know that there's problems with retaliation in the Albuquerque Police Department. Is your office willing to reach out and offer officers who might come out and speak up protection?
I have done that. I have had officers come to me and tell me things that cause me not to sleep at night. And I have asked them to come forward, that we will protect them, that I'm sure there's attorneys in our community who will represent them if they need representation, if they lose their job. I have done everything I know how. I have had other people reach out to these individuals and tried to provide them support. I have done everything I know how to do. Mostly as a human being than as a DA. I can't, I'm limited as a DA, but I have done everything. And I know there's members of you out there that have talked to me that have done the same thing. Everybody.
Obviously you've got this case against you that APD sent to the AG's office. Do you consider that retaliation, and are you afraid of any retaliation?
I just, you guys are asking me questions I don't want to answer. Because I don't want to be accused of retaliating. I don't want to be accused because I'm not. I'm not retaliating.
Okay, so rather than your opinion on whether it's retaliation or not, could you help us pin down the timeline? When did you learn that APD was investigating you, and when did you inform APD that you would be bringing these charges against Officers Sandy and Perez?
I never informed APD that we would be bringing charges until the morning, I think the morning of, if I'm correct, that we filed the charges. We were talking in the summer about concerns within the community, within the criminal justice community. We got the police reports around September 30th. On October 7th, I had a telephone discussion with Fred Maurer, who works with the police union. And Fred remembers it better than I do. He called me about something else, and I was talking to him about that, and I said, Fred, on the Boyd case, we're gonna have to probably, move forward on that. I mean, that's just the way it's going to be. And he said, fine.
That was on October 7th?
Around October 7th. I mean, I didn't mark down the dates. I did not find out about the charges or anything relating to my situation until December 5th at about 9:30 in the morning.
For those of us who don't know, Randy, can you tell us her expertise, criminal defense?
She started out in the district attorney's office years ago, and I've known Randy for 30 years, so I haven't really kept up. Then she left the DA's office, and I believe she's been in private practice ever since she left the DA's office, which I don't know the date that she left, but it would have had to have been in the 80s at some point. And she's been in private practice. I don't know, she does some civil rights litigation. She has prosecuted or represented some victims, families in officer-involved shootings. I think she's done medical malpractice cases, and she's done some product liability cases. And I think that gives you a general background. She is well respected in the community for being a very good and able trial lawyer. And she usually likes to take on causes where she believes that there's an injustice and try to right that wrong. I believe she expresses it much more eloquently than I do, but I think she has that reputation.
She's a former deputy DA.
I don't know if she was a deputy DA, but assistant district attorney. Are there any other questions? Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
And I believe that we have the letters, and Kayla's got packets, probably not as many as people we have, but just to keep you fully informed.